with the rest of that match and, of course, our viewers' competition after the break.
Still reeling from last year's Test Series defeat.
Pakistan's unbeaten record goes up in smoke.
Pakistan returned to England, determined to settle the score.
That's got to be close. Got to be very close.
Unsure? For the first time, Sky Scope will help you decide. A brand new innovation to analyse live cricket. Our coverage of the Pakistan tour begins with the Vodafone Challenge, Tuesday at 11, exclusively live, Sky Sports 1.
This is the first car in its class to meet the new European emission standards for the year 2005. The car has a 10-year anti-corrosion warranty.
Really?
We have 240 robots here.
Marvellous.
Every single car is individually tested before it can leave the factory. And this is the finished article.
Well done. Wonderful. And I hear you also make those funny little Skoda cars here as well.
One good idea can get you billions, and one really good idea can get you killed. Ryan Philippe.
This isn't a game.
Antitrust.
If you haven't yet sent in your census form, don't forget to post it and count yourself in.
Interesting fruit, the lime. Did you know that British sailors used to take them to sea to stop themselves from getting scurvy? That's why Americans call us limeys.
Sorry, what were we saying?
I'm not.
Excuse me, I want to buy a conservatory.
Sorry, she's very confused.
Home improvement loans. This way, madam.
Oh, they do insurance too.
Shouldn't you go to a bank?
Nonsense. If the Sprouts are good value, then so is their money.
I don't think it's quite that simple. She's getting on a bit.
Well, the retail sector has a loyal and regular customer base combined with a broad distribution of prime retail outlets. Factor in the low-cost acquisition through stores and the efficient back-office banking operations, and in today's volatile economic climate, you get a very competitive rate and return on your investment. Don't worry, love. You'll understand when you're older. Bye-bye.
Tesco. Every little helps.
My last night in the States. And here we were, riding home from the concert, in a carriage with no air. Then it hit me. I was gonna miss this lot. It was one of the best nights of my life. And I didn't want the journey to end.
Terence William Green, you have been found guilty of the murder of Preston Snow.
Sometimes we'll do anything for the ones we love.
Why'd you lie for him, then? After all he did to you?
Where would you draw the line?
He expects me to do his dirty work.
You're the only one I can trust on the outside. Anita Dobson and Leslie Grantham together again.
My husband's not weak, and I wouldn't want you thinking I was a pushover either.
The Stretch, a Sky One original drama, tonight at 9.
And we'll find out very soon who's likely to face in that final. Time now for our viewers' competition and your chance to win a pair of high-tech Adrenaline Pro squash shoes. If you can answer this simple question. Who won the 2000 Hurghada PSA Masters? Was it A. Jonathan Parr, B. Peter Nicol, or C. David Palmer? Send your answer by mail to High-Tech Super Series Competition, PSA 82 Cathedral Road, Cardiff, UK, or enter on the website at www.superseries.co.uk. See you again after the break.
The fans, so great is their support. The players, so little time left to repay them. Tomorrow, Ipswich play Man City. After promotion, opposite fortunes. Burley's boys can now aim for the Champions League as City are battling to stay up. On Tuesday, Liverpool face Chelsea. As the Reds focus on gaining a Champions League place, the Blues hope a UEFA Cup spot will do for this season. Premiership football in association with Ford, tomorrow and Tuesday live on Sky Sports 1 and Extra.
Compact is more than just a logo on the BMW Williams F1 car. The engineers use compact Reliant servers with Intel Pentium 3 Xeon processors, which give instant access to performance data, enabling them to experience the ride from thousands of miles away, and Frank Williams to realize the team's ambition of winning the World Championship again. Business solutions from Compaq.
Good morning, this is your captain speaking. On behalf of your entire flight crew, I'd like to welcome you to our destination. The local time is 5:26 a.m. For your own safety, please keep your seatbelts fastened until we reach the gate. Once again, we know you have a choice in your air travel, and we appreciate your business. Thank you, and have a pleasant day.
At UPS, we don't just go by the book. We go beyond it. UPS. Consider it done.
If you're considering a holiday to Florida, keep in mind, flights take off and land daily. There are lots of memorable dining experiences, and it's easy to make a big splash with everyone in your family. Just bring them to SeaWorld in Orlando. No one will want to miss this chance to explore new territories. Become really close friends with the locals. Or kick up their heels, especially on new Kraken, Orlando's tallest, fastest, and only floorless roller coaster. Call Virgin Holidays today at the number on your screen for complete package and ticket information to SeaWorld. Or call your local travel agent. And be sure to ask about the Adventure Passport for great savings on 2 of Florida's best theme parks. SeaWorld Orlando. Put your family's holiday over the top.
You lot today, it's all work, work, work. You don't have time for lunch, time for hobbies, time for your friends.
You're not happy in your job. And you don't even have time to find a new one.
Workthing saves you time. Tell us exactly what you want and go straight to jobs that are right for you. It's a job thing, a skills thing, an advice thing. It's a work thing.
It was the day the world was united in war.
Every American alive remember exactly where they were when they got the news.
The young men on board didn't know.
Wouldn't it be odd if everybody was the same? You know, treated the same. Which is why Bupa treats people as individuals. So, with Bupa Heartbeat, you don't pay an average price. You pay a personal one.
New Bupa Heartbeat, the health plan that's as individual as you. Call 0800 00 1010.
Hello? How are you?
You don't always know where stains like this come from, but Vanish knows how to get rid of them. Just one tablet added to your detergent does it all for you, seeking out and removing stains until they're all vanished. And now there's new Vanish Tabs Plus, our best ever tablet with 30% more stain-removing enzymes.
What do I value? The countryside, the seasons, my guitars. I value individuality, you know, being treated as an individual.
It's got to be my family, my medals,
and being the best at whatever you choose to do.
I'm a strong believer in tradition. My birds, the tools of my business. I do love my football, yes I do, yeah.
My workshop, the lifestyle that my wife and I have created here.
From banjos to businesses and hawks to houses, NFU Mutual protects the things you value. NFU Mutual, insurance brought down to earth.
At the Marketplace, we offer truly independent mortgage and financial advice. Available at your local Bradford and Bingley branch.
I've come to warn you.
I don't need your warning, thank you very much.
How do you tell a friend
I'm really sticking my neck right out for you.
Wind it back in.
that her boyfriend's a criminal?
Just give me 2 minutes,
I
please.
didn't have you down as the jealous type, Sam.
When your friend
I've come here to save your skin.
I don't need saving.
doesn't want to know the bill. Tuesday at 9, ITV1.
Mom?
Yes, love?
Remember when we got back from holiday and a pipe burst and our carpet got totally ruined?
Yeah, Direct Line delivered us a new one.
And when Grandma's cooker blew up?
Yeah, she couldn't get it fixed, so she got a new one too.
So, even if it's older, you still get a nice new one?
Yeah.
Mom?
Yeah?
Does it work with brothers?
Direct Line's new for old home insurance. Call or buy online and you could save up to 30%.
I'll have to break our transfer record to bring your Darren to United, Mr. Nash.
Oh, he is a class player.
Terry, can I have a word?
Not now.
It's urgent.
Tom, I'm on the verge of the biggest signing in this club's history.
But this just came.
OK, so your gas and electricity supplier isn't that important. But remember, at npower, we're constantly working to lower your bills.
So, the new home.
And this is our first night.
Dad. What?
I can't get the PC working.
So ring the Curry's helpline.
With the new Curry's helpline, you can ring us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We've no worries low prices too. Like this Packard Bell PC with printer, scanner and desk for just $7.99.
Dad, you're gonna guess what it was?
Curry's. No worries.
I didn't think Flora Proactive was going to work, and when it did, I was actually amazed.
After using Flora Proactive, my cholesterol came down and I was well impressed.
Clinical trials prove that no spread reduces LDL cholesterol more than Flora Proactive.
I had no idea it was going to work as dramatically as it did.
Initially, I thought, no way.
I love it to bits, I really do.
It's good for me, and that's the important thing.
I can't believe it, my cholesterol's come right down.
Yeah, really chuffed.
Flora Proactive can dramatically cut cholesterol.
Tell everybody!
New from Witch. Cleansing and toning wipes with natural witch hazel. The easy way to help make bad skin days a thing of the past. Witch Cleansing and Toning Wipes. Natural skin confidence.
Maze Carpet's massive warehouse clearance is now on. Save up to 50% off Maze already incredibly low prices. Maze World of Carpets at Abingdon, Swindon and Cheltenham.
I like to keep my body running like clockwork. That's where Bioactivia from Danone helps. It's a delicious tasting bio yogurt with a unique culture that eaten every day helps me feel good. And when you feel good on the inside, it shows on the outside. Bioactivia.
Danone.
Kellogg's Crunchy Nut Cornflakes. Irresistibly delicious honeyed nuttiness. So tempting, you just have to give in to them. Kellogg's Crunchy Nut Cornflakes. The trouble is, they taste too good.
Join me in 20 minutes for an ITV News special, the latest on the rescue efforts in America. And Tony Blair says Britain is at war with terrorism. And joy amid the grief, the baby born 2 days after his father died in the tragedy. Join me tonight at 10
Edinburgh. Two cities. There's a city that you see, that you know, and there's a city that you don't see, that I know. The city under the streets, the one with the shadows and the darkness, the violence and the ghosts.
You killed Callum!
Blood is blood, Rebus. I hope we don't meet again. I'm not the friendly kind.
Rebus, Thursday at 9.
Good evening, you're watching HTV.
New pictures reveal an apocalyptic vision of New York. Echoing America, Blair says Britain is now at war. Tiger Woods forces a Ryder Cup postponement. And born father's death on one hijacked plane.
From ITN, the ITV News with Trevor McDonald.
Good evening and welcome to this ITV News special with all the latest developments in the wake of the attacks on New York and Washington. For the sixth consecutive day, teams of rescuers have continued their exhausting and painful search. New pictures show Lower Manhattan as an apocalyptic wasteland, 1 million tons of twisted metal and masonry. It's estimated that 15 million square feet of office space was destroyed. With every passing hour now, hope of finding people alive is fading. 5,097 are listed as missing. Mark Austin reports from the scenes of devastation in New York.
3 square miles of New York reduced to 1 million tons of rubble. It is from the air the terrorists did their damage to this city, and it is from the air you can see most clearly the result of their extraordinary attack. And in this city of despair today, the search continued for the thousands still buried, people still officially listed as missing, but who now surely must be dead. Today we managed to gain access to the very center of what they call here Ground Zero, to within yards of what was once the World Trade Center. Only when you get this close can you fully appreciate the extent of the devastation here. The twin towers of one of the most famous buildings in one of the most sophisticated cities in the world now resembles something akin to a Roman ruin. It stands as a grotesque monument to the day the terrorists struck at the very heart of America. We're inside the security cordon, and this really is as close as you can get. And what you can see here is that the rescue teams and salvage operations are really only scratching the surface. It will take weeks, even months, to clear this smouldering mountain of twisted metal and debris. And amid the debris, the rescue teams and their dogs still work. But it's hard to believe anyone could still be alive in this. Then, suddenly, the call goes up for quiet. A faint tapping noise has been heard.
Go home! Shut up!
Soon everyone is silent, watching, waiting, hoping. Then a call for more equipment.
Another big light!
For the next few minutes they listen and they look.
We need a lot of quiet. You can't have the background noise. You gotta back up, except for the team working here. So please, everybody else, just back up. Because there's too much background noise and they're listening.
These are men hoping against hope that even just one can be pulled out alive. But on this occasion, and so many others in the past few days, there is nothing. No more tapping, no sign. The work resumes once more. Today we met one group of firefighters heading home for rest, exhausted and pained by the strain of it all. You can see it in their faces and hear it in their voices.
It's like torture. It's like torture. Can't find nobody.
What's
What's the work been like? Hard?
It's not fun, that's for sure.
It hasn't been that good at all. It's been tough. Everybody's working hard, doing what they can. See what we can do to help the families out. We got to pull some brothers out. They're in there, there's a lot of people.
Do you think there's any chance?
There's a chance.
You think there's still a chance?
Yeah.
What gives you that hope?
What else have we got to go by? Just the way it is. I think it's a chance.
And you're going to carry on day after day until you find someone?
Well, we're going to do our job, and our job is to get our boys out.
And can you just sum up for people who have no idea what it's like, what it is really like?
It's a bad dream. That's all I can say. It's a bad dream.
All day and all night the operation goes on here. Last night a fire truck buried when the towers collapsed was finally lifted from the scene. For New York's firefighters this was a desperate image. 7 out of 8 of the men who worked from this truck were killed. So far in all only scores of bodies have been recovered. Thousands more are in there somewhere. Today we spoke to the police chaplain in charge of the temporary morgue here.
It's a scene out of hell. I mean, it's just, you can't believe the carnage is down there, and the, I mean, we're just bringing in parts of bodies. And can't describe adequately what they're doing, but the impact is an emotional impact. It's taking its toll on everybody. And to bring their loved ones out.
And America is now preparing for one. What once stood here symbolized all that was strong about the country. They will of course rebuild. Together again is the way America feels about itself, the sense of security, of invincibility this nation once had. Mark Austin, ITN, New York.
Tony Blair put Britain foursquare behind America today. In one of his strongest statements yet on tracking down those responsible for Tuesday's attacks, he said, "We are at war with terrorism." It followed an ominous warning from President Bush, urging Americans to be patient because the conflict will not be short. Here's our diplomatic editor, Robert Moore.
Late this afternoon, the Prime Minister emerged from Downing Street to echo President Bush's view that this was a war, and that Britain, like the United States, would now fight terrorism with all available resources. From the language and the tone, it was clear that direct British military involvement is now an increasing possibility.
Are we at war with the people that have committed this terrible atrocity? Absolutely. And we have to assemble the evidence, present it, and then pursue those responsible. And this is a time at the moment for a cool head and a steady nerve, but an absolute and fixed determination that the people responsible for this terrorist act that has killed probably hundreds of British people, as well as many thousands of Americans, are brought against the whole machinery of mass terrorism. And that is something for the whole international community to come behind. How it's financed, the groups
We will call together freedom-loving people to fight terrorism. It is time for us to win the first war of the 21st century decisively, so that our children and our grandchildren can live peacefully. That my administration is determined to find, to get them running, and to hunt them down, those who did this to America. The American people are used to a conflict where there was a beachhead or a desert to cross or known military targets. That may occur. But right now we're facing people who hit and run, They hide in caves. We'll get them out.
The cruise missile strikes on bin Laden's network were tried 3 years ago after the bombings of US embassies in Africa, and they failed. The question of how to destroy bin Laden and his terrorist cells has left the US military scrambling for a military plan. But the Americans are making clear they will take on not just individuals, but also the regimes in Afghanistan and elsewhere who have harbored and supported these Islamic militants. There is no sign of a huge mobilization of the US military similar to that witnessed before the Gulf War. This time it is more likely to involve air power and highly mobile special forces operating deep inside Afghanistan. Britain already has naval forces heading towards the Middle East on exercise, but it's not known if they might be diverted to be closer to landlocked Afghanistan, and whether SAS units will also be deployed to help in the hunt for bin Laden. With the bitter experience of Northern Ireland, Downing Street, like the White House, acknowledges any war against terrorism will last not weeks or months, but very possibly years. What is less clear is whether British forces will be deployed on the front line in Afghanistan or elsewhere. Robert Moore, ITN, Downing Street.
Let's go live now to our political editor, John Sargent, in Downing Street. John, precisely what does the Prime Minister mean when he says Britain is at war?
Well, it's not a formal declaration of war, such as happened in 1939 when Britain declared Germany. But what the signaling very clearly today in an interview with American television is that military action by Britain will take place. When the conflict comes, he says, we will be there in support of the Americans. So it's not an if, it's a when. Military action is now promised by Britain.
Mr. Blair wants to be in a position to support the United States. He said that quite explicitly. How much influence does he have?
Well, he has an enormous amount of influence in this sense, is that if the Americans got into a dispute with the British behind the scenes, and that came out, and people felt the alliance was split, that could have a very damaging effect on the whole enterprise. Now, Mr. Blair knows that, Mr. Bush knows that, everyone involved in the negotiations knows that. When he was asked about it today, Mr. Blair was surprisingly confident about the level of support. He thought there would be support right across Europe, of course, but also right across the world.
John Sargent, thank you. People from some 40 nationalities were killed when the World Trade Center collapsed, and in countries across the world today, there Liverpool and Norwich. And this evening, people gathered for... Nicholas Owen reports.
Patiently, they had stood and queued. Now the crowd moved forward on their way into Westminster Abbey. Even here, though, there had to be the precautions that remind us all of grim realities. The rock star Jagger arrived with one of his children to hear his estranged wife, the American actress Jerry Hall, address the congregation.
When Britain was being blitzed, we stood by you. When we are being terrorized, you stood by us. May we always stand together.
The Abbey was full for this unusual occasion. Many nationalities and various religions come together for a vigil of prayer. There was the sense of loss suffered on both. Joined by a common purpose to find hope out of despair.
God has been the spirits of the British people as they have overwhelmed us with kindness and compassion and offers of help in these days.
At Balmoral, the Queen and Prince Philip drove to a private service to commemorate those who had died, a theme repeated in churches everywhere. In Liverpool, at the Anglican Cathedral, there were prayers for the dead and their families and those who have struggled so hard to try to find survivors. In Norwich, a special service for world peace on a day when so much of the talk and the fear is of war. In Bristol, a service in Clevedon was led by Father David Smith, whose cousin is a... Smith said that as they seek retribution, governments should ensure their response is measured.
Any action we take has got to be very carefully considered so that the guilty are punished, but the innocent are not killed as well.
And one of those who must confront the crisis and make difficult decisions, Tony Blair, with his wife and 2 of their children, joined a service at London's Westminster Cathedral tonight. They and thousands across the country offering their Sunday prayers 5 days after the unprecedented horrors in the United States. Nicholas Owen, ITN.
It's now thought that as many as 300 Britons are missing, fair dead in New York. But it's also becoming clear that hundreds of others did manage to get out before the World Trade Center complex collapsed. For them, the days since the fateful events of Tuesday have been a time of great anguish. Here's Andrea Catherwood.
Opposite the smouldering remains of the World Trade Center, a shrine to the missing. This was the landing place for thousands of workers who'd escaped the burning towers and boarded ferries across the Hudson River to safety. Among them, British survivor Neil Richardson, a former policeman from Hereford. He evacuated his office when the first plane struck.
Looking up from the street level, we were almost immediately below. As terrible as it seemed, we felt fairly safe that what had happened, and we were looking up at this massive gaping hole with smoke and flames billowing out. And then it seemed like within about 20 seconds, the whole area just rocked with this massive, this sound, this huge explosion, and then these flames and smoke just sort of enveloped the whole top of what seemed like both buildings as this second plane had struck. And of course, the whole time I was looking up, seeing these poor souls jumping out, obviously still alive, many of them, and clearly faced with what they believe was either a slow, painful death or a quick exit. It was absolutely horrific and something I'd never, ever want to see again.
Neil's wife, Ingrid, was watching the attack.
As I was looking at the news, the second plane hit, and at that moment I thought Neil was gone. I really thought I had lost him, and I collapsed, and it was pretty bad. So I would say for a good 2 hours I didn't hear from Neil.
Today is their wedding anniversary. They're grateful to be together as a family, painfully aware of what others have lost. Survivors from the World Trade Center now say that crucial decision to leave the buildings wasn't as simple as you might think. In the confusion, many people had no idea what had caused the explosions they heard and felt. They didn't know if it was safer to stay in their offices or move to the streets. And even those who realized what had happened never imagined those mighty towers would collapse. For Steve Blackburn, that decision came after a call from his hometown of Nottingham.
I got a phone call from my sister-in-law in England who told me that planes were hitting into the World Trade Center, and I could look up out of the windows and see the towers burning.
Minutes later, he'd left his office for the street beneath the North Tower.
And then I felt and heard again a great roar and rumble, and I thought another plane had come in. It was in fact the first tower going down, and we took shelter, and the clouds, we could see them rushing towards us, and everybody turned and ran east, but were overtaken by all the clouds, and we couldn't see and couldn't breathe. And I couldn't see any, I don't know what road I was on, I couldn't see any buildings to go into. I just kept going and going until I came to some clearer air.
The British national anthem rang out across Manhattan from the church bells of St. Thomas's today. Britons and Americans united in prayer, praying to make sense of this senseless destruction. Andrea Catherwood, ITN, New York.
Relatives of victims of the attacks who live in Britain were given a helping hand today. The government said it would foot the bill if they want to visit New York. The Culture Secretary, Tessa Giles, stressed that lack of funds wouldn't be an obstacle for families who wanted to go. Here's Helen Wright.
With demand for newly resumed transatlantic flights still high today, the government announced measures to make it easier for Britons desperate for news of loved ones to get to New York. It'll help financially and is considering special charter flights for those who lost relatives in Tuesday's attack. To help bereaved families, the government is offering to arrange flights to the States or to pay £500 towards the cost. It'll also pay for 3 nights accommodation for 2 people and travel insurance. Trained counsellors and British police will also be available to help families once they arrive in New York.
The problem everybody is working with is the lack of information and the lack of certainty. And it's that at this time which is so distressing for relatives. So what we're seeking to do is to lift from relatives anxiety about the practical arrangements.
Can I take the employee's name, please?
And the government's not the only source of help. There's advice for British families at the end of a phone at many city firms, most notably here at the London office of bond brokers Cantor Fitzgerald. 700 of its staff, British and American, are believed to have lost their lives at the World Trade Center. The company's president told me colleagues are determined to keep going in their memory.
We owe it to the family members of our colleagues to keep this firm going so that we could help them in the future, help their families, keep their lives productive so that they realize that their mothers and fathers did not die for no reason.
Flowers in memory of those who died fill the firm's foyer, with words of comfort for those left behind. Tomorrow, their resolve to keep going will be severely tested when traders on both sides of the Atlantic have to get back to business, still grieving for absent friends. Helen Wright, ITN in the city.
On the first Sunday after Tuesday's tragic events, normal church services in America were dominated by prayers for the victims. But as the nation mourned, there was a moving reminder too of the resilience of New Yorkers. Scores of firefighters were promoted to replace senior colleagues who died in the disaster. From New York, James Smates reports.
At the National Cathedral in Washington, a nation being led in prayer, one of many thousands of services across the country today being dedicated to the dead and urging dignity and restraint in their memory.
We must resist turning on one another. We must remember that evil does not wear a turban or a tunic or a yarmulke or a cross. Evil wears the garment of a human heart, clothed in hate and fear.
At St. Patrick's in New York, there were special prayers this morning.
Remember our brothers and sisters who died because of these tragic events of this last week. Amen.
But later this evening, the streets around the cathedral will be packed with people for a special memorial service. And a moving ceremony in Manhattan this afternoon as several hundred firefighters were promoted to fill the leadership positions of those who died on Tuesday.
You are being promoted today to provide the leadership necessary to continue.
Seeing so many called now to fill the gaps has really brought home the reality of just how many died. In the parks and open spaces of New York, they are still lighting candles and posting pictures of the missing. But there is no news and no one left unidentified in any of the city's hospitals. Really, no hope. Normally, in the aftermath of a major disaster, the numbers of missing or unaccounted for goes down as people either turn up or it's found that names have been duplicated. This time, though, the opposite is happening. Until now, many people haven't been able to get to New York to report people missing, so the numbers have been rising by more than 400 in the last 2 days. In the first substantial sign of recovery, Wall Street is to reopen in the morning. It has not been closed this long since the great crash of 1929. There is, of course, extreme nervousness about what the markets will do at the opening bell. James Mates, ITN, New York.
James, you said it, extreme nervousness. What's predicted for the opening of Wall Street tomorrow?
Well, physically, they do think it's going to work. Much of the trading on Wall Street, of course, is done by computer, and many of those computer networks were in the World Trade Center. But they do think they've been able to patch up the system so that most trades can go ahead. They're also confident that despite Wall Street being just a block or two from where all the rubble is, they can get people there either by subway or on foot. Well, the real nervousness, of course, is which way the markets are going to go. Now, there's two views here. One, that the damage down here and the long closure on Wall Street may well result in pushing the US economy into recession. The other is that the $40 billion that's going to be spent repairing all this may be enough to prime the economy a bit and turn things around. But tomorrow, I think, which of those is in the majority?
One report, so far unconfirmed, Pakistanis will give the Taliban a 3-day deadline.
Involved in military action abroad. And there was a minute's silence before today's Italian Grand Prix run.
Woods. It's the safest decision, he said, especially with retaliation imminent. This is not the time to play golf. The sports administrators felt the security risk of an American team appearing where military
to attend the matches this month. We have been placed in a position beyond our control, and therefore the matches
elsewhere. 40,000 people or not, their hearts were in. It was a somber race which reflected the nation's mood, but the uncertainty of whether domestic sport should carry on as normal continues to divide opinion. In Monza, Ferrari as well as Jordan and Jaguar displayed warning signs on their cars for the Italian Grand Prix. Colombian Juan Pablo Montoya recording his first Formula One victory in his Williams. There was none of the usual the American Grand Prix in Indianapolis
So it's basically obviously decision. You know, I'm professional, so are we gonna go there or not?
Back home, today's football matches both north and south of the border were
and it's hopes of finding survivors are now fading fast. 5,090 people are now confirmed missing from the world.
We are indeed at war. Are we?
A determined campaign, a campaign that will use the resources of the United States to win. They have
In churches across Britain,
For expressions of sorrow.
A square the Duchess of York, who lost many friends in the terror.
stretched right to Grosvenor Square. Soldiers keeping watch from the rooftops, lingering to gaze at the growing carpet of flowers. Many thousands of people who've come, but the vast majority had no personal connection. They simply watched in horror as events unfolded on television. They wanted to come here today to show their support, to share in the grief for so many lives lost.
This is an attack against the Western world.
At times like this, it's just...
You've got to make a stand against aggression and terrorism. Freedom and liberty.
Between old allies may be tested in new and dangerous ways.
Of the seemingly endless number of heartbreaking stories to emerge after the attacks on America, one of the moving is
but he died when his plane was hijacked.
This doesn't seem possible or believable yet to me, so expecting him to come back.
Danny Lee was a roadie for the pop group The Backstreet Boys, who'd been playing in Boston. He phoned home after their show. But Danny is missing, believed dead among the debris of the twin. His wife had hoped he might have missed the flight, but his friends told her
And they said all I could talk about was how
newspaper.
Gas, electricity,
and after that cold night, temperatures will recover in the sunny spells up to around 16 or 17 for most, perhaps the odd 18 in the far south.
In detail now and generally unsafe. The region. We do see wet weather during the rest of the week, but tomorrow and Tuesday look good. You enjoy them. Bye-bye.
HTV1. Call one of these numbers now or contact your pay TV supplier.
Baby, I've been waiting for some time.
The new Civic from Honda.
See you later, boys. All right.
As clear as your conscience.
Bake with some pesto, and when it's done, stir in some crème fraîche. And if you don't have any crème fraîche, I down the shops. Oh yeah, best place.
Tottenham. We do have 3 for you, so Russ Williams is going to guide you through the highlights starting at the Valley.